having or showing the capacity to develop into something in the future. My friends, that's how we defined potential. For inspirational and transformational people, the word potential can hold several different connotations and meanings at large. We'll get back to that word and concept of potential in just a moment, but first, I have some statistical data that I want you to consider as we dive deeper into this conversation today, all about children with autism and the gifts that they bring to the world. It's estimated by the National Institute of Health that 61% of children with autism encounter behavioral conduct problems throughout the course of their lifetime. However, it is important to note that the prevalence of behavioral issues can vary depending upon the definition, with estimates as it relates to specific aggressive behavior can range anywhere from 8 to 68%. One man who's devoted his entire professional career to unlocking the potential of children within the autism spectrum is my friend, Edgar. He's the Director of Education at Springbrook Autism Behavioral Health. It's a residential program which provides specialized care for children and teens who are autistic and who also experience behavioral and emotional challenges. He's also the founder of the Carolina Special Education Advocacy Group, where he works directly with parents and families navigating the IEP process, helping them to understand their rights, develop effective plans, and gain confidence to advocate for their children's educational needs. On top of all of this, Jake is also the host of the All Abilities No Filter podcast that dives headfirst into raw, unfiltered, and real conversations about disability, inclusion, and education. Each episode features voices from parents, professionals, and self-advocates who are all working towards the goal of building a more inclusive and understanding world. And Edgar joined me this week to tell me more. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Take a moment to welcome you to the program, and I'm super excited to learn about your time working with those with disabilities and in residential care. Great to be with you today, and happy Wednesday to you, my friend.
You too, brother. Excited for it.
Absolutely. Just before we get into our conversation, I'm curious to ask you what the International Day for Persons with Disabilities means to you, because I know you worked with students with disabilities for a long time before you got into residential care. So what does this day specifically mean to you, my friend?
Man, it's up there as I feel like one of the best days of the year, just because really the whole world, or the whole, like I said, community around gets the time and the day to celebrate a population that I get to work with every day, and really celebrate individuals that have impacted my life for the absolute better. I get to celebrate some of the best friends I've ever had, but also gives other people the chance to see what amazing opportunities, relationships, and friendships you can build when you interact and spend time with or just learn about this certain population.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nick, I'm also curious to ask you about what it means to you to define the word inclusion, and what do you think it means to eliminate barriers for individuals with disabilities to reach their fullest potential? My friend, what does that mean to you?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Inclusion to me it is a sensitive and important topic because I feel like with inclusion, the ultimate goal is to make everyone feel like they're part of the team, part of the gang. Myself working in all types of different educational placements in schools, my main goal is to make everyone that I'm working with or in a classroom feel like they are just part of the classroom because it is with inclusion, you kind of, in my opinion, you kind of have to watch both ends of it just a little bit, just because if you don't appreciate or don't think about inclusion and you're not offering the accommodations, the modifications, or the opportunities to individuals that need a little bit more assistance or help, it's a super detriment to them because it's hard for them to succeed. It's hard for them to feel like they belong in a group, but also it can go the other way as well. If all they're hearing is how special they are or how different they are, and that's why they're getting these different accommodations and these things to help them out, they can also again feel like they're just different from everyone else. They don't belong, or they're just on a different level, or whatever it is. Just when a teacher or an individual is just trying their best to make them feel included or making sure they have what they need. But also, if we are overloading with all these changes and strategies and accommodations, we're kind of taking away someone's ability to grow or to learn how to problem solve and things like that. So I think inclusion is so important to both making someone feel like they are part of a group, like they're just anyone else in the group, but also balancing that out with the ability to grow, with the ability to problem solve, to be able to work life and go through life without having all these accommodations built in. So inclusion is so important. It's so awesome, but it has to be balanced. It has to kind of just make sure everything is working together to ultimately help an individual meet their best chance for success or meet their most potential.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jack, I also wanted to ask you about the conversation surrounding diversity, equity, and inclusion, specifically in the United States, because, DE&I efforts are under a bit of concern, assault, really, if I'm being honest, my friend, and I'm wondering your thoughts on how we may be leaving kids in the classroom behind or helping them get ahead by our current stance in America surrounding diversity, equity, and inclusion. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, IDEA it's one of the most important things that we have educators or just working in the school system or the Department of Education. It can't be forgotten. It can't be neglected in any way because that's such a huge population where their needs, the tools that they need to succeed, it's reliant on that. It has to keep being where it's federal law to make sure these underrepresented population are getting what they need. But working in special education, anywhere from a self-contained setting all the way now to where I get to work in a residential placement and residential setting, it is a struggle, I feel like, in any setting to guarantee that each individual student is pacing at the way they need to in order to meet their goals, meet their objectives, whether that's an IEP objective or just a life objective that they need. And I do believe one of the areas where we're struggling the most right now is just in the classroom with overworked teachers, teachers with caseloads up to 25 to 30 students. And that's a lot just in general education. But now you're going to throw special education in there to where now this teacher is responsible for 15, 20, 25 IEPs a year. And I think all your listeners know what goes into an IEP, the amount of hours that takes. So a classroom is becoming much more of a clerical objective, keeping up with paperwork, making sure all the policies are in compliance. And we're almost neglecting the individual instruction that is a must have, because all these kids that we have in these overloaded classrooms are learning at completely different rates and levels, because a teacher might have, like I said, 20 students, but she's got 6 groups that learn in different rates. So the teacher is teaching 6 different lessons with minimal help, minimal support, but still maybe the support's decreasing, but the expectation stays the same. So it's so hard to meet these individual needs with just a growing population, growing classrooms, to where the individualized instructions getting put on the back burner to making sure all the documentation and policies are in place so the school doesn't get in trouble for any situations. I can't tell you how many IEPs I've been in as an advocate and as a teacher to where we're discussing policy and making sure all ducks are in a row legally, way more than we're talking about the instructional strategies that we're using to best serve the student. So something's got to be put in place to where we're getting smaller classrooms, more highly trained teachers in there, and making sure that above all else, the number one focus is not the paperwork, but the progress of the student.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jake, what are they going to take to close the equity gap in education? And, what I firmly believe when it comes to education, I always go back to it takes a village to raise a child. And I know this intimately because I was born with cerebral palsy. So I went through the IEP process and all of the special education sort of rounds of education. So I'm curious to ask you about closing the equity gap in education, and what do you think it'll take, my friend? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, it's so, because that gap is just increasing because the amount of resources that people have throughout the country in different communities and different income populations, whatever it is, the resources there, it's so diverse. It's so just, it differs so much. And I think, like you kind of said, it's going to take, like you said, the village, the team, the highly trained professionals to get together and to understand that when it comes to special education, it has nothing to do with where you are in the country, your income, whatever it is. It's what are the necessary things that are needed to progress the skill set, the ability levels of these kids, but also growing their confidence, growing their ability just to get through a class or have any type of life skills developed or anything like that, or just the blanket that we put over things when it comes to what things are available, what the school has access to. It's just becoming such a decision maker when it comes to what is available to these kids, these students, these adults. So until we're able to sit down and understand that these disabilities aren't hyper focused on one population, I think then the equity of special education is going to continue to grow and continue to be an issue. But once we're able to, like you said, work together as the village, as the team to make these decisions, that's when I kind of feel like the progress is going to be able to be made.
Yeah, absolutely. No. Jake, you also told me that every experience you've had in your career has given you a deeper understanding of the diverse needs and strengths and stories that make up the special education community. So I'm curious, what lessons have you learned about how the special education community has evolved because it's an ever evolving conversation, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And you're right. Every area I've been able to work in or just be a part of has taught me something different. Straight out of college, I started in a high school in a self-contained classroom working with students where we're working on life skills or transitional skills and things like that. But it's where, and that was like my first experience actually running and managing the classroom, handling the IEPs, being part of the team there. And then from there, I was able to experience different settings such as resource pullout services, administrative teams, and working with different organizations and understanding their processes, all the way to now where I work with Springbrook Autism Behavioral Health, where we work in residential care, but we hyper focus on adolescents and children with autism along with behavioral disorders. And where my experiences have grown is really understanding that the child's situation plays such a huge part in their things that they have available to them, such as like when I first started in the self-contained classroom, I was a young teacher dealing with mostly parents, dealing with their IEPs and the guardians, and being able to work very closely with those that are having direct impacts with those students and children, to now in autism, excuse me, now into residential care, I'm dealing mostly with caseworkers and social workers. And because a lot of the time the parents and caretakers aren't involved in the process, and you can tell where that has severely impeded these students and these children's ability to get the services they need, get what they need to progress, and but also their current levels. What is their current levels in math and ELA are extremely deficient because for half their life they've gone through the state system, again dealing with caseworkers and social workers other than dealing with parents and direct guardians, and seeing how their IEPs have suffered, and understanding where we're kind of having to take steps back. We can't just because they're 16 years old doesn't mean we can start like they've been getting services and the correct education for 16 years. No, we got to take it all the way back to their present levels and start from there, because they've been had such a disservice because they've been having to go from group homes or other residential placements where the IEPs have lapsed or those services that they need have just not been there. So it has really opened my eyes these past 16 years working in all these different environments where the home life and the where these kids are coming from plays such a huge role in what our decision making has to be, because I work with kids from all over the country that come and work with us, and we're just having to pretty much just start from scratch a lot of the time to find the correct starting point that these kids need in order to start them on the track that will ultimately help them become productive members of society, and gives them options of what they want to do after high school or whatever vocational program they're doing. But it really it has just opened my eyes to so many different ways that things impact a student's ability to learn, but also has helped me build the skill sets to accommodate to all types of different students.
Yeah, absolutely. And before I ask you about your current role in residential care, I'm also curious to ask you about your perception of how the IEP process works. Because unless you're in it as a parent with someone with a disability, or if you work in special education, you're not really familiar with the IEP process unless you have to be in it firsthand. So I'm curious to ask you about how do you think the IEP process has evolved specifically, and what do you think parents or people who are interested about the IEP process need to know about it if they want to learn more about it? What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Sure. Yeah, an IEP is probably the most important thing a special education teacher a parent with a child with a disability focuses on and deals with, because it is the blueprint roadmap to a child's success in the classroom. And it can be one of the most stressful things a parent has to deal with. Because if things are not handled correctly with an IEP, it can turn into a productive team deciding process and a team effort, and it can become very confrontational. It can become very stressful, and it honestly can become just an ego match on who can get their way a lot of the time. So what an IEP does and is, like I said, it is supposed to lay out what a student can do, what they cannot do, what services they need, how long those services need to be in the classroom. It tells their objectives for the year, and how they're going to meet those objectives. And it also describes all the members of the IEP team, along with other information, but that's pretty much the basic and the most important stuff in it. And then annually, the IEP team meets to discuss what has happened throughout the year. But the most important thing is to discuss, okay, what will go into next year's IEP, what is needed for this child to meet their goals and have the best chance for success. But if the IEP team does not communicate effectively, if there's not mutual respect, if feelings and opinions are not validated on both the teacher's part and the parent's part, it can be extremely confrontational, because the parents will start to feel like their child is not getting what they need, and the school and the teachers don't care that what they're not getting. And then on the other side, the teacher will start to feel extremely defensive. They'll feel like the parents are against them, that the parents will never like anything they ever do in the classroom. And that's where that confrontation can come. So with an IEP, it's so important that communication is happening throughout the year. If parents and teachers just wait till the IEP meeting, which only happens once a year, to start communicating, then you're just meeting in a room full of strangers. You're just talking with strangers. But if parents and teachers communicate throughout the year, then that IEP team becomes very familiar. Then you're just talking about things you've already talked about throughout the year. You're very comfortable with decisions that are being made. You understand why decisions are being made. You have faith in this teacher that they care about your child and that they're doing their best to get there. So an IEP and the IEP team has to be nurtured. It has to be cared for throughout the year. And more than anything, there has to be an understanding that the number one goal of this IEP is to help this student and this child. If that's not the main focus, then an IEP is not going to succeed. But once it is the main focus, it can be one of the greatest tools for this child. But an IEP in the process, it can be very daunting and very, very stressful if it's not handled and cared for correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me tell you, as someone who's gone through his fair share of the IEP process, not all IEPs are made up the same, right?
Exactly. Oh, absolutely. They are individualized to that student. And I will say that is one thing that when I work with parents, that their biggest frustration is they don't feel like that IEP is individualized to their kid enough. They feel like it's almost a plan for the classroom and not their child. And so teachers really need to go above and beyond to specifically show how their IEP individualize to that one particular student. And once a parent sees that, it alleviates so much stress. Once they see that this IEP is for my kid and this is my kid's IEP, you can tell it just alleviates a lot of stress for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's now talk about your current job. As you mentioned, you're the current director of education at Springbrook Autism Behavioral Health, which specializes for children with and adolescents who are autistic and may experience behavioral or emotional challenges. My friend, so tell me about your role and the impact it's making, because I know that you play a big role in providing their educational programming. So Tell me about your role and why you love it so much, my friend.
Oh, absolutely. Like as you said, I'm the educational director for Springbrook Autism Behavioral Health, and we're a residential treatment hospital in Travelers Rest down in South Carolina. And what we do is we take in adolescents as like all the way from 5 years old up to a much higher age of 18 to 21 sometimes. But we get the population that we serve is primarily these adolescents that are on the autism spectrum, but also display pretty severe disorders or conduct that is these behaviors and the diagnosis has made it very difficult for them to succeed in a general setting. So they come to us at Springbrook, where our entire educational and therapeutic team, we work together to take as much time as it needs to assist these kids to kind of lay the groundwork of different therapeutic skills, educational skills, and strategies. To just provide them with the structured environment that they need to build these skills so that when they leave us, they have the opportunity to go back to their general school and succeed, to make it through a classroom without a severe outburst. So when they come to us, they are served with my educational team, but we also have occupational therapists, speech therapists, rec therapists, individual family therapists, our psychiatry team. We all work together to kind of like what we just said, to individualize a treatment plan and an educational plan that will best serve these students and these children and teenagers. So, and they come in from, and what's the most diversified thing about our kids is their ability levels. We have kids that are nonverbal all the way up to just way smarter than I am and has to help me get through the day sometimes. But we try to serve every kid, and I get to work with some really amazing kiddos that I just love seeing every day. I've been in this field in this particular placement for quite a long time now, and I've loved every second of it. And it's a great challenge because at Springbrook, if you can't adapt, you're going to have a tough day. So we are constantly changing our strategies, changing the way we look at things. And what I love about my team the most is we're not afraid to try things, even if they might not work. And that's fine. If something doesn't work, then you just eliminate that and try something new. And we just have that ability to try all these different possible strategies and solution with these awesome kids until we find something that sticks. And we're a very cohesive team of amazing specialists that really get to hyper focus on these kids that we get to see every single day. And hopefully we hate to see them leave, but we love to see them leave and go succeed out into the community. I love getting the emails and the phone calls and the letters of students that are succeeding in their classrooms or going out in the community and getting jobs, and being able to leave these productive lives. So Springbrook, it means a lot to me to be part of a team that I do feel like strives to make such a difference for these kids.
It's all about investing in the future of the next generation, isn't it?
That's right, my man.
Absolutely. Jake, I know that you're focused on creating learning environments that value progress over, perfection, my friend, and really prioritizes the student's unique path towards growth, my friend. So tell me about why you believe that it's important to prioritize progress over perfection, my friend. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, progress over perfection. That's been a huge motto of mine because when we work with this population, we sometimes focus so much on the end goal. We focus so much on that IEP goal that says we have to hit it by the end of the year. And because we're so focused on that perfection and that end objective, we're not noticing these small wins, these small points of progress that we see kids make, and we don't get to appreciate them. We don't get to have fun with them. I was working with one of our kids, and he was just very avoidant of his classwork. Just like I said, he hadn't been in school for quite a while, so I was lucky to get 2 to 3 minutes a day of educational programming from him. And it just wasn't happening. But every so often, he would increase his amount of time with us, maybe by a minute. And we would sit there with a timer. And every time that timer went above what he did yesterday, we sat and celebrated with him and rewarded him, because it might not be a huge progression. It might not be the end goal, but for him, it was a big deal. And you could tell every time we celebrated him for just programming for 30 seconds more, it lit him up, and he wanted to progress more and wanted to progress more. And eventually he was programming for hours at a time. Just really, that confidence is built up. But if all we're doing is focusing on that end goal, that is such a burden to take on. That is why it's so important to hyper focus on those small victories, those small wins, where a kid that we work with, hey, he might cuss me out 10 times a day, but that one day he only cussed me out 9 times. That's a huge success. I am going to celebrate that kid, because that's going to build his self-esteem, build their progress on that. But the want for perfection, that want for the end goal now, it's also going to cause such a burnout on the caregiver, on the teacher, that because they're not appreciating and wanting to see the small victories. Or when parents want to compare themselves to things they see on social media, where they're seeing these videos of these parents working with their kids, and the kids are doing so wonderful, and they're making such progress, and that's wonderful. We love to see parents celebrating that. But what the parents aren't seeing is probably the 6 months of hell it went through to get that kid to that point. So they're comparing themselves to perfection that they see from other families, and things like that. So I'm a huge proponent of forget about the end goal, celebrate those small wins, celebrate that little bit of progress each time, because eventually it's just going to become the norm of just getting excited when just the smallest bit of progress hits. And that's going to make you enjoy your job so much. It's going to make the student enjoy the objective, because they don't feel the pressure to be perfect. They don't feel the pressure to hit 100% all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jake, I also know that you're the founder of the Carolina Special Education Advocacy Group with the mission of helping families and parents through this very process that we're discussing, my friend. So tell me about the group, its work, and its mission, my friend. What do you want people to do?
Oh, sure. Yeah, the advocacy group we started probably back in 2019, and it really started and got me thinking when I was working with Springbrook, and I was probably spending half my day talking with parents from all of these different states and helping them understand what the IEP is coming up. They're asking for all these questions and wanting to understand the processes and what questions they're allowed to ask and things like that. And these are things that I noticed when I was teaching in public school and all throughout my career, but it was just happening so often at my current job. So we decided to just start a group that our primary focus is educating, guiding, and assisting parents, grandparents, whoever the guardian is over the IEP, and just educating them on that process, on any special education process, and helping them feel more prepared for that IEP meeting, but also how to track the IEP, what questions to ask throughout the year to ensure the IEP is being held in compliance. If they need services requested, how do you request those services? But also for us to sit in on IEPs and almost help delegate the IEP, mediate the conversations between the school and the parent. But the main goal of the group is to make sure that the process is focused on the child. That is what we try our best to make sure is happening. Because if we can do that, everything else hopefully will just fall into place. But it's been wonderful being able to meet different parents and talk with them and help them understand exactly how best to advocate for their own child, because that's another goal we have, is to turn parents into the best advocate, to where they don't need the group anymore. They don't need someone else to come in and help them out, because they have the knowledge and the skill set to be that child's number one and most effective advocate that they can. So it's been great. We've thoroughly have enjoyed it, and we've really built some great relationships with parents, and we love just assisting them and becoming more confident. But more than anything, playing a part in the progress and the success of their child, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and Jack, I wanted to get your perspective on some statistical data from the Pew Research Center that reported last year that students with autism made up 12% of the nation's school children with disabilities back in 2021 and 22, compared to just 1.5% between 2000 and 2001. And during that 2 decade span, my friend, the share of disabled students with specific learning disabilities like dyslexia and other learning disabilities has decreased from 45% to 32%, my friend. So I'm wondering, what immediate thoughts come to mind when you hear that statistic? And let's talk about the progress we've made in serving our special needs community from an educational perspective.
Oh, sure. I think the number one thing, and probably one of the best things, is that we're finally treating autism as a spectrum. We might have called it autism spectrum forever, but we've not till recently really been treating it as a spectrum, meaning it is incredibly individualized. Autism affects people in different ways. There's different levels of it, but also autism affects way more than just a child's ability to be social or enjoying physical contact. It affects their cognitive levels. It can affect their behavior in some way. So it is, I think the increase in diagnoses is great, but it's because we're understanding that autism doesn't affect just one thing. It affects a multitude of a person's ability to function, to grow. We're appreciating the fact that it can be contributing to intellectual disorders or behavioral disorders. And we're not just saying because a kid has intermittent explosive disorder that they're just a bad behaved kid, or instead we're telling them that their autism is affecting their ability to process things, which causes frustration, which causes outbursts. And it's just not it doesn't boil down to something as simple as, well, you're just an angry kid all the time. No, it's the makeup of their brain. Like I said, the autism plays a role in their ability to deal with stressful situations, to deal with high sensory environments and things like that. So, yeah, I'm so happy that we've been able to see it now that autism again is being looked at as a spectrum. It's not just looked at as a social disorder or a form of ADHD or compulsive disorders or anything like that. So I think it's wonderful that it's finally giving the respect as the spectrum that it really is.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jake, I wanted to also ask your opinion on the importance of giving the special needs community, whether they're students or adults, access to a gainful employment, my friend, because we found out a couple of years ago from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics that it takes the average college student about 6 months to find a job out of college, but it can take students with disabilities and adults with disabilities up to 2 to 3 years to find a job out of college. So tell me about the importance of helping them gain access to gainful employment, because that's a critical part of the equation too, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And it's probably one of the most important because these kids can spend 18, 21 years in going through school and having these goals they're working towards, these objectives that they're trying to meet, these services, these accommodations, these different skills they're been given. But then after high school happens, or if they're able to go to some type of vocational or training programs after that, things can't just stop. Their life has been structured around these objectives and these goals, and that has to continue. And that comes from the availability of employment, like you kind of said. And it's so important that we're offering them these opportunities and these abilities to continue to grow as members of society. And there are some great opportunities with Goodwill's equal employment system, or we here in South Carolina in Greenville, there's local businesses that take such pride in hiring young people with disabilities to work in coffee shops, to work in grocery stores, to work in these positions where they're building skills, building their social skills, learning how to work as a team. But more people and more businesses have to be able to see that opportunity, to where they have the thought of hiring somebody that learns at a different rate or understand things a little bit different are going to have a negative impact on their bottom line or the income coming in or whatever their reasoning is behind it, but able to look past that to be able to look to the benefits of bringing in somebody that just needs the opportunity, needs the ability to have the chance to, like I said, grow their ability to become these members of society that are contributing and being able to lead the most independent life possible that they have. And there are wonderful opportunities for businesses to apply for certain grants and funding when it comes to showing that you are being the place of business that will offer these people a chance. So I highly encourage these businesses to seek out those opportunities. But also, you're going to employ somebody that's going to probably have a positive impact on everybody they meet. But they just need the chance. It's these people that everybody needs the chance to prove themselves. And this population can do it just as well as anybody else. But we also have to remember that the tools need to be set in place that they need to have success. Like we've been saying, everything has to be individualized. So being able to offer this population the tools that they need to succeed is just so important, all the way from when they first begin school to when they're beginning their first job.
Yeah, absolutely. Jake, I also wanted to talk to you about building trust and communication between educators and those that care for the special needs community in terms of caregivers, reducing the use of restraints and the use of productive strategies and proactive strategies to put these students and caregivers on the path to success, my friend. So talk to me about the importance of quality communication between all parties involved, because that's also critical, isn't it?
Oh, without a doubt. And when people are, whether, like I said, if you're a direct caregiver, a teacher, or like in my case, working at Springbrook, we are working with students and children that, again, their behaviors can be quite severe. So, one of the most important parts of communication is, well, one, the caregiver, you got to be self-aware enough to check yourself a lot of the time. Communication between this population and the caregivers, it breaks down if the individual you're caring for is having a meltdown, so that causes the caregiver to have a meltdown, then there's no communication there. So as caregivers, as guardians, as teachers, we have to always remember that we're able to check ourselves in situations to where the communication is always happening. It's kind of like what you said with the restraints and seclusions. no matter what situation you're in, that level of intervention is always your last resort. It is everything else had to have been exhausted before that takes place. And before that happens, de-escalation has to have to happen where you are offering everything under the sun. You're offering every coping skill, getting triggers taken away, like I said, communicating, talking, getting this individual to tell you what's going on, or being self-aware enough to recognize triggers before they're set off, whatever that is. But the communication part and de-escalation part has to be exhausted before the physical interventions with restraints and seclusions take place. And that's only done ever to protect the individual from hurting someone else or hurting themselves. In too much and in too many cases, people, when you see a restraint and seclusion, it's almost looked at as like a punishment, and everything has to get away from that. That is not the case. It's meant to protect somebody, not punish somebody. So yes, restraints and seclusions can be avoided, kind of like what you said, with that open dialogue, open communication, and focusing on de-escalation before physical intervention can be used. And it all that takes is educating yourself, seeking out. There are tons of resources that train individuals, where that's a caretaker, teachers. We have them on site in our program, where we have trainers and mediators and instructors on how to de-escalate, how to go through the crisis cycle, how to address each part of that crisis cycle. But then when physical intervention is needed, how to safely do it. It's not just a wrestling match. You have to safely do it. That, again, provides the least amount of restriction, because a restraint and seclusion can be re-traumatizing for poor kids a lot of the time. So that open communication, the open dialogue that is needed, can really prevent those escalations to where physical intervention is needed.
Yeah, and Jake, just before I ask you about your podcast, I've got two questions left for you before we get to
Sure.
that part of our discussion. But I also wanted to ask you about, as an old sports reporter, my friend, I also wanted to ask you about the benefits of inclusive sports and extracurricular activities, because I know for me they played a large part in my development and falling in love with sports in general. But tell me about the importance of extracurricular activities and sports for the special needs community, because I know that you believe it provides authentic experiences of inclusion for the special needs community. So tell me all about it, my friend.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I have had the opportunity to work quite closely with Special Olympics, uh, primarily through their program Project Unified, where their main goal is to take the general ed population and the special ed population and put them together on sports teams and have them compete in local and sometimes national competitions and things like that. And Kevin, I'll tell you, throughout my entire experience with this population, nothing even comes close, I will tell you, to the amount of change something has made in what I've seen in lives than inclusive sports. It's just nothing even remotely comes close to it. It has played a huge role in my professional life, even personal life, because sports is something, you might not like sports, but you know about sports, but it is the ultimate team builder. It is the ultimate form of camaraderie. It can be the ultimate form of friendship. It's the ultimate form of encouragement, of self-esteem building, of excitement. And when you take these kids that might not have that opportunity because they're deemed, just they always, maybe the caregivers or parents feel like they won't be able to handle the excitement and stimulation of a basketball tournament or a flag football game or whatever that is. But when we structure the environment around it, And then but the biggest thing is they're not just participating with other kids that are considered special education or having disability. They are participating with the general public, with these kids that they might just look at as different or always want to be around. And both parties, both sides are so excited to play with, to compete with each other. And it is the ultimate form of inclusion because they never look at each other like, oh, you're the general athlete and I'm the special athlete. They never look at it that way. They're like, we're teammates on the same team, and it just grows from there. I both encourage families to seek out these opportunities for their kids to be a part of, even if you're nervous about it, even if you don't feel like they're going to be able to handle it. These types of programs are individualized and accommodate to your child. So we'll do whatever it takes to help them be able to participate. But almost just as much as that, if not even more, I encourage the general population to seek it out because too often with kids with disabilities or adults, we feel like we have to walk on eggshells around them. We feel like we have to treat them differently. We have to we have to handle that relationship completely different than we'd handle a different relationship with another general person. And that it really doesn't allow that relationship the chance to grow. It's stagnant. It's honestly boring is what it is. But these inclusive sports where they're spending so much time with each other, I've seen interactions go from almost talking in baby talk to this population to you would never know there's any difference going on. They just look like friends hanging out, friends talking with each other about anything any other friends would talk about. And that's the biggest benefit of it. They completely feel like they're just part of the gang. They don't feel like they're less than, but they also don't feel so special that they feel like they're different from everyone else. They're just hanging out with friends and competing with friends. And I've made friends from that I've had for now going on almost 20 years. But I've also seen the change it makes in these general kids that participate. Their patience grows, their empathy grows, their definition of friendship grows, and it's amazing. So I could not advocate for something more than telling parents and telling everyone to get involved in inclusive sports. It is one of the best things I've ever been able to be a part of. And so I encourage everyone to look into it. There's tons of programs all around the country that provide baseball teams, basketball teams, swim teams, whatever it is, it's out there. You just got to go find it.
Yeah, and sports can also help with the overall sort of cognitive development in terms of progression when it comes to mental health too, can't it?
Oh, absolutely. Because it's when you have that sports team or whatever it is, and it doesn't have to just be athletics. We work with chess teams, checkers teams, dance teams. All it is we're taking two populations and putting them together. But the cognitive and mental health can grow so much because the self-esteem grows, the confidence grows, because some kids that feel so isolated would never go up and initiate a conversation. After spending time on these teams and these groups, they're going up to everyone wanting to be everybody's friend. And it just that self-assuredness that these people are going to like me when I go talk to them, or they're going to conversate back to me, or not just treat me like I'm different, is huge. And I've just seen it have profound effects on lives well after the competition.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jake, I'm fascinated to get your perspective on, the economic impact of the profession to be a special educator. Because, despite, the growth in educational pay for special education teachers and workers and support staff, chronic issues such as, low wages and a lack of respect in some cases for the profession itself continue to persist, my friend. And report last year release from our friends over at the National Education Association show that the salaries for these workers continue to be undervalued, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on the importance of raising the economic impact and growth of salaries, because it's also important to make sure that we retain quality professionals. Would you
Mhm.
agree with that, my friend?
No, 100%. It special ed or any teacher, but I'm going to be biased towards special education teachers. They're never going to be paid enough because they're just not. It's with the amount of work they do, and I'll tell you, anytime someone asks what I do and what my profession is, and I tell them, I get the same response every single time. Oh, you're such a special person for doing this. I could never do this. I don't know anybody else that could do that. And I think to myself, yeah, you're right. It's very limited amount of people that possess the skills to work in this profession and make a difference like they do, and they should be paid for it. In that way, because in so many times, and yes, we go into this profession because we have the passion for it. Money is never going to be the deciding factor that we go into special ed, because it's never going to be, because it's not a big enough factor at all. We go into it because we have a passion for it. It makes us happy to work with these kids, and we feel like we never work because we're doing something we love so much. But when it comes down to it, we still have an economic need in our lives. We still have families we have to support. And it kills me when I see such highly skilled teachers and teachers that make such a difference have to leave the field purely because of an economic need. They have to make more money to support the people that they are responsible for, and it's such a morale killer to the teachers because we're no longer getting to do what we love, but also to these students that are losing on such an amazing resources with these highly qualified teachers that are leaving the field purely based on they have to be able to support themselves and their families another way. And I mean, it's been a problem since it started. And yes, there has been an increase, but it's just not enough. It's nowhere near what it takes to do this job to the standard that we want to. And personally, and again, biased, I do feel like people that make these decisions have no idea what they're talking about and don't understand the amount of time it takes to effectively teach this population. And probably because they've never done it before, or they think of teachers and think you have a 3 month vacation throughout the year, so we'll pay you accordingly. But decisions are being made without understanding the process, and it's very, very frustrating. It is just people don't want to look at the hours upon hours of time teachers spend at home creating these IEPs and planning the lessons because they don't have time to do it in the classroom. Who cares? Summers off mean nothing when you're putting in 16 hours a day on your lessons and your IEPs. And until it is reached to where teachers can make a livelihood that can support themselves, support their families effectively, then we're just going to continue to see a decrease in highly qualified teachers staying in the classroom. And that needs to be a priority on how we make that happen. I mean, since I've been can remember, all I ever hear is teachers don't make enough. Teachers should be as highly paid as doctors. And it's fun to say it, people say it all the time, but rarely do we ever see the actual change that's needed. And that's has to start at the level where these decisions are being made. But in order for that decision to be made, there has to be an appreciation. And pretty much every teacher you talk to will tell you that the appreciation from the people making these decisions, it's just not there. And until that is there, I hope it changes. I hope it gets to where we're retaining these teachers. But until that appreciation and understanding of how much they do is there, I don't know how much progress can really be made.
Yeah, absolutely, my friend. I also wanted to talk about your podcast, my friend, because I know it's called All Abilities and No Filter, and you dive into these conversations about students and people with autism and other forms of disabilities, where you really have authentic conversations. Again, aimed at sort of trying to bring progress to all of the issues that we've discussed today. So tell me about your podcast and its mission, my friend.
Oh, sure. Like you said, it's called All Abilities, No Filter. And the way it got started is pretty cool. I was sitting around with the other specialists that I work with, including our occupational therapists, speech therapists, psychiatrists, BCBAs. And we're sitting around this table during one of our treatment meetings discussing the strategies that have worked and what we're doing to help certain kids and kind of bouncing ideas off each other. And I kind of looked up and I said, what we're discussing and how we're discussing it is a parent's dream. We're in a one room full of every specialist a parent could hope to talk to about their child. So why don't we just record it and allow everyone to listen to it? Of course, we're not going to ever discuss certain children, absolutely, but we sit and we talk about, in general, strategies from a BCBA, from a special education teacher, from a occupational therapist, from a speech therapist, from a psychiatrist, and we're able to just talk about topics from every point of view you can think of. And also getting parent perspectives as well. And we don't, and the reason we call it All Abilities No Filter is we understand the tough parts of advocation and raising and assisting this population. It's not rainbows and sunshine all the time. It's not the almost the fluffed up, like I said, rainbow version of it that sometimes is portrayed on in media and on social media with these Netflix shows coming out on autism where it looks like everybody's just having a good time. It's tough, it's stressful, it's devastating sometimes, and we understand that, and we don't shy away from talking about it. But what we spend our most time is talking about the success that comes from the struggle. And we bring on guests from all over that can share different perspectives. So it's been so much fun filming and doing All Abilities No Filter, and some of the best discussions I've ever had with people, so listeners are able to get points of view from every specialist you can think of, because we're all under the same roof and we see each other every day. So we might as well record ourselves and be able to help as many people as possible. So it's been great. I feel like we provide something that's different from almost any other podcast that centralizes on autism and any disability. We don't just talk about autism, but we just finished a series on the full IEP process and educational process and relationship building between teacher and parent. But then we also have talked about the whole ABA process with our BCBA teams. So it's been so much fun. I think it's so beneficial, and I encourage anybody to look us up and try us out, because I know we have something for you, because we have almost everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Jake, my final question for you has to do with your own individual and personal legacy and how you want that to be defined. And what would be your final message to those watching or listening to this about the importance of not leaving children behind, especially with the cuts we're seeing in education today, my friends? And you can take that two-part question in any direction you wish, my friend.
Yeah. Leaving no kid behind. In order to do that, we have to get rid of almost the label what comes with special education, because no matter how hard we try, when we hear special education, we're always going to feel like it's completely separate from the general public. It's going to come with what it is, but we got to get rid of, because it's special education means the chance for success is less than. and our ability to challenge is not there. And our ability to take these kids and progress them at their own rate. And there is no need for them to progress at the same rate as every other kid there. And we just have to get rid of any type of perceived inclination that these kids cannot be challenged, and we cannot throw everything we can at them to help them progress, and also that failing is okay. Trying something that doesn't work is okay. Then we get to try something else in there. The trial and error process is always what is going to work the best, because you're being able to individualize things that way. And so what my objective is, and my message is to parents and is to teachers, is quit looking at this population as if I always have to handle them with kid gloves all the time. And that's just not the case. Is we have to, yes, develop a plan that meets their needs, but that does not mean we can't challenge them. We can't put them in difficult situations. If they have a meltdown or a trigger, okay, we know not to do it that time. Let's try it the other way. But being afraid of failure, both as a teacher or putting a kid at the chance of failure, is failing from the get-go. We have to be able to take chances with these kids in this population. We have to not be afraid of something not working. And when I feel like when people have that mentality, it quickens the progress, or it quickly shows how an individual can grow, and they're not going to be looked at as someone that's always going to be at some level and then just passed along from grade to grade. So that would be my message let's just look at this population as being able to handle difficult situations, or being able to be challenged, and not always just having the automatic assumption that we have to handle everything with kid gloves, or be afraid to put these kids in a situation that they might struggle in. And that's okay. If I ran away from every situation I was afraid of, or if I quit anytime I thought I was going to fail, I don't know where I'd be at. And we have to give them the same opportunity to fail, almost, because that's when you're going to be able to succeed. But if we're always just going in with the inclination that we got to handle this differently, or with kid gloves, then we're setting them up for failure, because we're afraid to fail a lot of the time. So that would be my main goal and main message. But also go out there and get involved, both if you have a disability or you're just in the general public. Go out there and get involved with it. Don't be afraid to build those relationships and those friendships, because it'll better your life in ways you don't even know.
Absolutely. When I give speeches on this topic, I always say that everyone's portrait of success is different, isn't it?
Absolutely. And people feel success in different ways. I have friends that are lawyers and doctors and very successful in the business world, and they talk to me about how their success is, and all the thing I'm thinking of is, that sounds so boring, because these numbers are going up and their marketing, blah, blah, blah. It's just boring to me. And then I look at them and I tell them how we were able to get a kid to transition from his bedroom to the cafeteria without a meltdown. And I feel like it's the funnest, most exciting thing ever. And they're looking at me like it's not a big deal. And I don't have any hard feelings towards them, because I feel like their gross market value and whatever the heck they did last quarter is extremely boring and not a big deal. So we have to look at success individualized and see what the appreciation is for each other and what we really think success looks like.
And diverse perspectives brings innovation, doesn't it?
Absolutely, 100%.
Absolutely. So, Jay, tell me, if people want to get connected with the good work that you do, what's the best way they can do
Sure.
that, my friend?
Absolutely. People, I highly encourage people to go to our website at allabilitiesnofilter.com. All of our episodes are there, but all of our amazing resources we have from all of our professions are available there. They can ask questions. I highly encourage people to submit questions to any platform. We're on Apple, Spotify, anywhere you find your podcast, but please submit questions because that's how we build our episodes is we take questions from parents, from caregivers, from teachers, and try to answer those questions. Also go to springbrookbehavioral.com. That's the website for our program, and check us out and see if we're something you feel like we can help you. And we want to help any child we can. And that is our main goal there. So check out both sites and interact with us. And because we love to listen to our audience. It's the way we're able to build the show and understand what everyone is going through and making sure everybody can take something back with them, no matter what the content is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have to tell you, Jake, this has been a wide-ranging and extensive conversation about inclusion, diversity, and education, and providing students and those with disabilities with an inclusive pathway forward. My friend, I want to thank you for the good work that you've done in special education and for engaging in conversation with me this afternoon. It's most appreciated.
Thanks, Kevin. I've loved being here.